Hey, this is Margaret with Startup Colorado. I head up our communications and editorial program. If you're new to our work, head over to startupcolorado.org, where you can read and listen to stories about Colorado's rural entrepreneurs. Today, we have a very special guest with us, Colorado State Treasurer Dave Young. He's been kind enough to join us and talk all things rural entrepreneurship. Let's get started. Great. All right. Well, to kick us off, I want to thank you again for speaking with us today. As you know, at Startup Colorado, we support both rural entrepreneurs and ecosystem builders around the state. So this conversation will be really valuable for our stakeholders to learn about you and how you see rural entrepreneurship from a state level.
Well, and Margaret, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it, and we love Startup Colorado and the work they do as well.
Thank you.
Or that you do, I should say.
It's a group effort. So to get us started, can you provide a quick synopsis of what the state treasurer's office does?
Sure. What we do is very similar to what everyone else does in their personal finances. It's on a grander scale, but there's money coming into the state. There's money that has to go back out. The money coming in the state is tax revenue, and then the legislature decides how they want that money spent. And then it's our job in the Treasury to make sure those obligations are met. And so over the course of the year, we're managing about $40 billion. And so it doesn't all come in at the same time. We have to make sure that we manage our cash flow to, when I write a check, we don't bounce it like payroll checks. Not a good thing. We want to make sure everybody gets paid. But any dollar that we don't have to have in the bank, we invest. And so we have a conservative portfolio, but we do invest that. We also manage finance things in the Treasury, much like if you were going to have a mortgage or buy a car, and wanted to take out a loan, we sometimes finance so that we can get projects done. And so we have kind of core financial work that we do that's very similar to what every person does in their own family finances. We have specialty programs that we do as well, where we focus on retirement. We focus on businesses. We have the Climber Small Business Loan Program. We're right in the middle of all the property tax discussions right now to see if we can help with property tax relief. And so we have a lot of other pieces, as well as the great Colorado Payback, the unclaimed property division that tries to get money back in the pockets of people. So in the big picture, I think we look long range. I'm not unique in this case. I think treasurers across the country really see ourselves as long range thinkers, and often we tackle problems that are not immediate but are going to have really long range benefit if we take care of them now, or could, if we avoid them, result in really long range financial disaster. So we tend to focus on those things, but that's at a high level what we do.
Oh, great, thank you. And I appreciate that business analogy. I think that will resonate with a lot of people.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so you're a lifelong Coloradan. Can you kind of tell us how the business landscape and economic outlook of rural Colorado has evolved in your lifetime here?
Well, now you're going to figure out how old I am by my answer here, because I have lived in Colorado all my life. I was born post-World War II, but not very long after that. And so, interestingly, Colorado still has a strong agricultural and mining kind of bent to it. I think the mining piece is certainly under inspection, and market forces are moving us away from that. But there wasn't a ski industry until just after World War II. And so, the whole outdoor recreation a part of our economy has evolved since then. And so, I live in Greeley, which is in the middle of Weld County. It's certainly a big agricultural area of the state. As a matter of fact, it's one of the top 10 producing agricultural counties in the country. The other 9 are in California. And so that piece hasn't really evolved, but I do think that everybody wants to live in Colorado. So we've seen a huge growth of people here. And, I think what we're seeing now is that growth is beginning to expand just off the Front Range. Certainly the The outdoor rec industry is overpopulated in some places, the mountain regions, but people are now starting to move more into rural Colorado because frankly, the finances make it work for them. And so we've seen a huge growth up in the Weld County area, the new congressional district formed because of that growth. And so, we're seeing a bigger advent of tourism now than we had previously, and a big focus on renewable energy. So this is an evolving process as we try to cope with rapid growth and figure out how we can maintain our infrastructure and make sure people have access to capital. And it's created some workforce shortages around the state with the way this growth has occurred. And so we have good and bad coming out of this, and we certainly want to maximize the good, but we want to address those things that are challenges as well.
Yeah, it's certainly evolving quickly. Even just within the last few years, you can really see the changes. They are noticeable.
Well, and
So,
COVID really had an impact on this as well, so it has changed things even further, as you well
yeah,
know.
yeah. So, as someone who has both worked and lives right now in rural Colorado, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing small business owners and entrepreneurs in these areas?
Well, and I mentioned COVID before, and we really did see that there was a change in the financial landscape for a lot of businesses as a result of that. The governor put together a huge task force. I was included to try to figure out, just as COVID was hitting, what we needed to do. And one of the things we realized is that small businesses are really a large part of our economy here in the state of Colorado. And we wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity to provide access to capital for small businesses that may have been experiencing some kind of shock from COVID and needed to have some working capital in order to work their way through that period of time. So we actually launched the Climber Small Business Loan Program. Climber stands for Colorado Loans for Increasing Main Street Business Economic Recovery. We're actually going back to the legislature this session to change that, not just the name. The R is going to be now resiliency, but we're also enhancing the program by moving it from the Treasury over to the Office of Economic Development and International Trade. So, this is a big challenge. We want to be sure that no business shutters for lack of working capital. And so Climber is available, and it's really starting to take off. But I think, we see there are certainly workforce shortages all across the state. As a lifelong educator as well, I was a K-12 teacher and higher ed professor for 35 years before I got into elected office. I see the need for workforce training, and we also have issues with employee recruitment and retention. And so, the Treasury, we're actually working not only on the Climber program, but on the Colorado Secure Savings Program, which allows people who don't have access to retirement savings at work an opportunity to save. And so this is a way that business owners can easily provide an additional component to their compensation package, and hopefully helps attract and retain employees as a result of that. But we also know that there are challenges with our infrastructure. And in the Treasury, we're working on that right now. We have an initiative that we call BUILD. It's another acronym, Building Urgent Infrastructure and Leveraging Dollars. For these acronyms, we always have to go in a room and figure out what the words would be to go with the acronym, right? So that was true with Climber and the same with BUILD. And what we see is a broad-based problem with our infrastructure. Certainly, affordable housing is an issue, but we have great authorities that are working on this, CHAFA and others that are really trying to address it. They just don't have enough capital at this point to address it. And now you hear the governor talk about transit-oriented affordable housing, and I always call it affordable and accessible housing because I'm very attuned to making sure that everybody can live in housing, not just certain people. And so when you talk about transit-oriented affordable housing, all of a sudden now you're combining two pieces of infrastructure and trying to make them coordinate. And of course, water is probably one of our biggest issues, if not our biggest issue in the state of Colorado. And I can go on and on and on and talk about the infrastructure problems, but I think we're acutely aware of them. But fixing these things take real long-range effort. And so we're working on the initiative now to bring people together across the state to really collaborate and figure out how we can address these very large infrastructure problems that we have.
Right. Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing some of the solutions and ideas behind addressing some of these challenges, because that's, as an entrepreneur, we're always looking for solutions to problems and not just saying, "Oh, there's a problem."
Well, and I think government has a role in that, definitively. I mean, people are busy in their everyday lives, and certainly that's on the personal side. But an entrepreneur, a business owner, is really, really busy just trying to put all the pieces together to make that operation run. And so, government can take a step back and look at these bigger problems and make sure they're not impediments to the growth that small business owners and entrepreneurs really are trying to grapple with. Then that just takes one big problem off their plate so they can actually focus on the work at hand.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna pivot us away from challenges and look at some pretty optimistic news here, as Colorado is leading the nation for new business starts. And while much of that is on the Front Range, rural Colorado is certainly claiming its fair share. As these communities evolve, what can local governments do to support new business development?
Well, you probably are aware of the Just Transition initiative that we've been focused on. I've been pulled into that conversation happily. And just to describe it a little bit, we have areas of the state, and we talked about our legacy mining. We have areas of the state that are dependent still on production of coal and using that coal for energy production. And of course, we want to transition away from that to a renewable energy economy. But that has an economic impact, and you see this in the northwest corner of the state and the Hayden area, where you've got a coal mine there and a coal-fired plant. But it's other places out on the eastern plains as well, and down in the Pueblo area, where we need to make this evolution. And one of the things that we know about Coloradans is nobody likes to be told what to do. And I'm just like that, just like everybody else. And so you have a community that clearly is in transition. I think that local governments and state government can really be supported by helping them re-envision, think about what it is they want to become. I don't want to be the person that walks into an area of the state and says, I think your community should do this or that and the other. I don't think that plays well. People don't like that. But if we can facilitate generating that conversation, and collectively a community says, look, we want to transition into these different types of economic drivers in our area, then I think we can play a role at the state level, with local governments, in helping provide the financing and the infrastructure necessary to make that happen. Certainly, we're hearing that in various places around the state around housing affordability for workforce, and there's some efforts already underway, and they were last session in the legislature around simplifying the process, streamlining regulations for housing. But we can also offer incentives at various levels of government to ensure that people are able to maintain themselves. And I mentioned secure savings earlier. That's an example of an easy button, no cost to the business, but it's a way to actually provide an incentive package, part of a compensation package, to attract and retain people in an area of the state. And I've talked quite a bit about infrastructure, but certainly without the infrastructure, and I think about a community that might want to transition from a mining view to maybe a tech hub. But we know that the digital access is not always very good in many parts of the state. What can we do on that infrastructure? What can we do on electrical transmission to make sure that whatever if this is the goal of that community to make that transition, that the infrastructure is there to support them. And so we've got quite a bit of work to do, but I think the key to that is listening very carefully to these areas of the state. And I'm sensitive to this because I live in rural Colorado. People want to be listened to. They want to hear what it is, or they want to be heard about what it is they want to do with their communities and be supported. So I think that's the role that government can play.
Yeah. There was something you said earlier that made me think of Geyser Systems in Montrose, and the founder was able to utilize a mixture of both local and state grants and tax programs to relocate his business from Texas to rural Colorado. And he said this numerous times, but Colorado is very friendly to entrepreneurs, and that type of mechanism really speaks highly of what's available to people starting businesses here.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. Actually, my mom was born in Montrose in 1920, so I'm glad to hear they landed there.
Yeah, it's a great company. So kind of along those same lines, while there are several rural companies who have been awarded advanced industries grants, it's still primarily distributed to Front Range businesses. So, as one of the prime sponsors of this program in 2013, how do you see this program evolving to support more rural entrepreneurs?
Well, and I should mention that was my second year in the legislature, and it was really I had tried to run an incentive program my first session when we were in the minority, and it didn't get through. But we came back and kept working on it. I've had a working relationship with the Office of Economic Development and International Trade for a long time, and we abbreviate that OEDIT. We always have to have our acronyms, but OEDIT has been a great partner all the way along, and they were certainly that on the Advanced Industries Accelerator Act when former Speaker Mark Ferrandino and I ran that bill in 2013. I think they've come back in the legislature and made additional tweaks to it. But you're right. You try things, and just like we're doing with the climber program now, we come back for legislative changes. I think it might be time to revisit that. I can think about maybe awarding preference points for rural businesses as you score these proposals. One of the beauties of the program is that OEDIT is and state employees are not making decisions about this. This is actually business owners across the state that come together and review these applications. And I think that's where the real strength of this is that people who really know the economic environment, the business environment, are the ones that are scoring these applications. And so if you change the scoring in certain ways, you can make sure that this is more of a statewide program and not just concentrated on the Front Range. I think you also sometimes just find in various parts of the state, and I'm not going to say that this is unique to Colorado, but you have small business owners that want to put in a grant, an application for a grant, but they just don't have the technical experience or the skill set to actually put a good grant proposal together. And so providing some kind of technical assistance and support so that somebody can easily get that done and put in a really high-powered application certainly is a good idea as well. And OEDIT may be doing that already. I'm not aware of it, but I don't want to say they should be doing something when they are. They're very forward thinking in what they do, and so they may be providing that already. But if they're not, I would encourage them to do that along with outreach. I think sometimes also people are very busy in their lives and in their businesses, and they're just simply unaware that these things exist. And so OEDIT actually has, I think, about 162 programs for businesses across the state. That's a lot of different programs, and sometimes it's just too much to wade through. So one of the things I know that we're having a conversation in partnership with OEDIT, the Treasury, is about how can we better provide support systems for businesses so they actually have something like a case manager that they're assigned to that really understands the full landscape of the programs that are available to them and can say, hey, I think you should look at maybe these 2 or 3 or 4 programs. These might be the ones you would want to look at. So these are things that OEDIT, I think, is either contemplating or maybe even doing now, but things that, if they need support, they need financial appropriations from the Joint Budget Committee to actually do more of, they can certainly can move forward with that with support of the Treasury and me. And then, I'll come back to infrastructure. We need to invest in rural Colorado as well as the Front Range. And I think sometimes we look at where all the population is, and a lot of the focus gets there. But as I mentioned earlier, we do see a trend of people moving away from the high density urban areas to more rural areas just because of the kitchen table economics. And so if people can find they can make they can pencil their personal finances and make things work by moving to rural parts of the state. We need to demonstrate that we are there to support them wherever they are, with infrastructure and with programs like the Advanced Industries Accelerator Act.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think we have time for one more question. And this is something that at Startup Colorado we're starting to see more of, is other organizations kind of similar to ours, or just people in other states reaching out and asking, how is Colorado doing so well on the rural front in terms of entrepreneurship? So what can, from your point of view, what can other states learn from the steps Colorado has taken to foster innovation and economic development in rural areas?
Well, that's a great question. And, I think we learn from other states as well. We certainly learned from states like Oregon, Illinois, and California around retirement savings. They had actually taken steps to begin to solve this massive retirement savings problem that we have with a program that we looked at and said, well, we like that, and we're going to try to launch it here. That secure savings program is a public-private partnership. And I know sometimes people are concerned that, public-private partnerships aren't transparent, but we've worked really hard with the secure savings program to make sure everything we do is very transparent. And the use of and importance of having public-private partnerships is crucial, I think, to the success we've seen not only in secure savings, but other efforts as well. And I think we're going to see that in efforts around infrastructure as well. So, we have partnered with other states actually on retirement savings, and Hunter Raley and his team with Secure Savings has actually proven to be first in the nation, leading the nation in partnerships with other states in retirement savings. And I think we see the governor doing the same thing around energy development. So it's not just public-private partnerships, it's partnerships with other states looking at regions or looking at commonalities that actually allow us to build some economy of scale while we solve some thorny problems. I think we're really working hard to invest in workforce. This is as we think about the ability to respond to these infrastructure problems. One of the problems we have is a lack of workforce to actually build these projects, a lack of workforce to actually maintain them and operate them once they're built. And I think Colorado is really making an investment in that area, but we need to continue to do that. But I think this may be one of the things that is a hallmark of the state that we are attempting to do. And then, this goes right back to what you're doing at Startup Colorado, and that is really embracing and encouraging emerging industries and entrepreneurs for economic growth. And I think this has been something, as long as I've been in the legislature that has been a real effort, and I think it does speak well to the state, and it draws people here because they see opportunity. But we're going to have to continue to think about our long range thinking and how we finance the efforts in all these areas to actually make sure they're maintained and they grow. And so in the Treasury, I mentioned we do financing, and this is why we're really focused on that in the Treasury, because you can get out in the lead, but if you're really going to keep in the lead, you got to keep pushing the envelope, and that's what we try to do.
Exactly. Well, thank you. That was a great response.
Thanks.
Great. Well, we are at time. I appreciate you taking the time to chat. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything that came to you while you were speaking? I you did most of the work, so I don't know if you had a chance to.
It wasn't
to give
hard
an
work.
add-on.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. No, I thank you for giving me the opportunity. I will just say that it's a small but mighty team in the Treasury. We are managing this $40 billion plus all of these additional programs that we do with a staff of just slightly over 50. And this is pretty incredible. This is a good news story for the state of Colorado that government is efficient and effective and actually productive, solving some big problems. And, I take a lot of pride in having the opportunity to work with such a great team of people in the Treasury. The state and the taxpayers ought to be extremely proud of the work that's done in the Treasury. It's not always well understood. Most people say, well, I think it has something to do with money. But when you start to peel the onion and look and see all the different things that are going on in there, it's pretty amazing. So thanks for letting me speak. But it's not just me. It's a tremendous team of people that are working on behalf of the people of Colorado, and they all should be very proud of the work being done in the Treasury.